How to Marry a Mailman is the 4th episode of the 8th season of Cheers. This is, of course, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I have quite a lot of notes, some quotes that I love, some moments that have me absolutely crying with laughter. I really needed this. I watched this at a time when I needed a bit of a pick-me-up, and Cheers is always a good go-to for that, and I have to say, there are still tears in my eyes. It's absolutely fantastic. The open is pretty decent. Colcord is in Cheers, and Norm and Cliff are asking if he's seen The Millionaire, the TV show where a millionaire gives money to random strangers, and they suggest, wouldn't it have been nicer if the millionaire gave money to close friends and people he knew rather than strangers? Of course, trying to get some of Colcord's money. And Colcord thinks, yeah, that might have been quite nice, and he's about to pay for his drink, and Norm and Cliff both say, don't worry, I've got this, obviously trying to be his friend to get his money. So Colcord says thank you, he leaves, and then we find out that he had a $75 drink. So it didn't exactly go according to plan. We then have the next scene with the main narrative kicking in pretty quickly. We have a main narrative and a subplot with Rebecca, and I'll talk about both of them chronologically as we go through things. It actually starts off with Carla watching Criminals at Large, and then she talks with the Cranes. Frasier has a bandage on his head because he tried to flirt with somebody at the Lamaze class. Rebecca then comes in to establish the subplot. She said she had the most wonderful thing happen to her that morning, and that's because she was in a car accident. Not what one would usually consider to be a wonderful thing, but the driver of the car was a plastic surgeon, and if Rebecca doesn't report it, he will give her any plastic surgery procedure of her choice. And this is Rebecca, so of course she takes it, and she's looking through this brochure of procedures to decide what she wants to get done, and she shows the Woody a before and after of somebody who got a nose job, and Woody asks, what did they do with the leftover nose bits? Which I have to say, I didn't have an answer for that. I don't know what they do. Do body parts go to an incinerator if you have bits of your face lobbed off for plastic surgery? I would assume so, but I genuinely don't know, and it rather amused me. Cliff then comes in with a message from Margaret. She's in town and she wants to see him. Cliff then starts to talk about a former girlfriend when he was at school, and he experienced hysterical blindness, which is where this event means that he can no longer see in temporary situations. Whenever he was away from this girl, he was able to see again. And it just seems like one of Cliff's stories, and we get a bit of comedy from Lilith when she asks him if he'd be interested in being a university project. And then Cliff's just prattling on a little bit more as he does. Norm and Carla's faces in particular, I thought were very funny in this moment. And then Margaret comes in, and Cliff's absolutely delighted to see her. It's a really lovely moment. There's a tiny bit of suspense as we wonder what it is Margaret wanted to say to Cliff. And we don't have to wait too long for her to ask, can I be your girl? And Cliff is so happy. I can't remember when we last saw Cliff this happy. Probably when he had the Beta. He is absolutely delighted. He has the biggest smile on his face. It's so lovely to see. He orders champagne and then he pours it, and it's very clear that the hysterical blindness is back. And Margaret leaves. She's obviously unaware of the situation, and Cliff sits down, and because Margaret has left, and that, I guess, I don't want to say threat, that doesn't sound like the right word to use, but the thing that's causing his hysterical blindness, I guess, is no longer in his immediate vicinity, so he is able to start to see again. He can see Carla's face. He makes a wise comment about that, and Carla responds to that. Let me check your depth perception with these 2 fingers, and it was just so smooth. She poked her finger, Sam grabbed her hand. It was just beautifully executed. And then Frasier weighs in on this a little bit. He explains that, and I quote, emotional crises can affect our sensory perceptions in devastating ways. I've read volumes on hysterical blindness, loss of hearing, even total loss of speech. Carla responds, Clavin had to pick blindness. To which Frasier replies, Carla, you're not helping. And Carla responds, I'm not trying. Which I rather enjoyed. I like that a lot. And Frasier suggests, and I'll be honest, I don't think Frasier needed to suggest this. I feel like it was pretty obvious, but nevertheless, Frasier suggested that Cliff's fear of commitment is so intense that it manifests itself in a form of blindness. And Cliff thinks, yes, that must be it. But obviously he doesn't want to stop seeing Margaret, so he asks Sam, quote unquote, as a fellow studmeister, to help him out that evening, and Sam agrees. Before we get to that, Rebecca then comes out of her office, about to go to the plastic surgeon, and Woody was very sweet, and he said to her, I don't think you should change a thing. You're a beautiful woman and just about perfect the way God made you. And Rebecca, blushing a little bit, said, nobody's perfect, there's got to be something. To which Woody responds, well then, your breasts. And Rebecca, walking to the door, said, thank you. And Woody, with a slight smile, said, no, thank you. But that itself is very, very funny. But I also like the fact that Rebecca wasn't actually feeling insecure about anything about her appearance. And I love this. I imagine most people, if they had the chance for a free procedure and they could get over their fear of needles, I'm talking about myself, I imagine there is no way I could ever have cosmetic surgery, not because I'm against it or anything, but because it would terrify me. But I imagine most people, if they could overcome that, would change something about themselves physically. But here Rebecca is presented with an all-expenses-paid opportunity to change anything about her physical appearance, and nothing comes to mind. There is nothing she feels so insecure about that she wants to immediately change, and I love that. I love that for Rebecca. I think that that's wonderful. Of course, the argument is that maybe she hates everything about herself and can't choose one thing, but that's not the impression I'm getting. I am getting the impression that nothing is coming to mind. And I really, really love that for her. Cliff and Sam are then in Cliff's apartment. We have a little bit of comedy about Cliff's synthetic fibre tie, and they come up with a cue that Cliff will give his tie, it's a clip-on tie, which is significant. He will give the tie a little tug if he starts to feel this hysterical blindness, and Sam will step in and help. And Margaret arrives. Understandably, she's quite confused about why Sam is there. And Sam is there to get some recommendations on a tie. And before they really get a chance to go any further with this, Cliff grabs onto his clip-on tie. He doesn't give it a gentle tug. He completely yanks it off and holds it at arm's length. And it's absolutely fantastic. So Cliff, Margaret, and Sam all sit down, and Cliff is also going to give Sam some of his corn. So he uses the ashtray as a corn server. And then we have a bit that I really loved. I loved the whole thing, but this moment I thought was really beautiful, because Margaret asks Cliff, Sam is sitting in between them, but Margaret asks Cliff, what do you want to do tonight? And Cliff responds, show you I can walk around the apartment without any help from anybody at all. And Margaret replies so sweetly, okay, Cliff. She doesn't question it. She doesn't raise an eyebrow. This is just Cliff, and she loves him for who he is. So if that's what he wants to do, she's going along with it. And it's just absolutely adorable. They are made for each other. And while Cliff is trying to walk around the apartment, Margaret says it's a comfortable sofa. Cliff comments that it actually turns into a sofa bed. Margaret wants to see the sofa bed. And that's when Cliff asks Sam to leave. And it seems like things are going to go well. Cliff walks Sam to the door. Sam leaves. And then the last thing we see is Cliff falling over the balcony. And he splashes into the pool below. And he has then walked off to Cheers, because he's obviously too humiliated to go back to his apartment. So he goes to Cheers, and the others had been placing bets about what they thought would happen that evening. And he goes to dry off in the bathroom, but Woody, I think it was Woody, pointed out there were no towels in there. So, so he said, I'll just stand in front of that whatchamacallit that blows hot air. Carla didn't miss an opportunity. She responded with a smile on her face. You mean the automatic Clavin? I don't know what I enjoyed more, the joke or Carla's delight in being able to say it. Sam and Margaret then come in. They've obviously, concerned, gone after Cliff. And when Margaret sits down, Frasier explains, and I don't like this. I like, in the moment it was funny, it's unexpected, but I don't like it when Frasier said, you should know that Cliff is a troubled, deeply disturbed, and emotionally stunted person. I don't think Frasier had the right to say that. And he said to her, I'm saying this as his friend. I can say this because I'm his friend. Where it would have been more believable if he'd said, I can say this as his psychiatrist. I think that would have made more sense. Because a friend wouldn't say that to somebody else, unless perhaps they thought that Margaret was in danger because of Cliff, in which case, yeah, fair enough. But I don't like it. I won't go on about it too much, but I didn't love that Frasier moment. Rebecca then comes in, and I have to say, they rehashed the same joke from earlier, and I'll go through this in a second, but it didn't feel old, it didn't feel stale, and I rather enjoyed this. Rebecca comes in, and they're wondering what she got done, or what she decided to get done, and she said, I've already had the surgery performed on an outpatient basis. And Woody glances at her chest and said, already? Wow, they look great. And Rebecca responds, Woody, he didn't work on my breasts. And Woody replies, well then why are they so much perkier? To which Rebecca responds quite dryly, thank you, Woody. And again, Woody says, no, thank you. Yes, it's the exact same joke from a couple of minutes ago, but it was just so beautifully done. Rebecca's expression was fabulous, and Woody's cheeky little smile is just so adorable. That comment from Sam would have felt seedy and inappropriate, but from Woody, it felt adorable and rather sweet. And she said that what she had done was something personal. And we don't take too long to find out what it was. She had a tattoo removed from her lower back. Sam thinks this sounds very sexy. He wants to know what it is, but when she tells him it was just a tattoo to cover up a mole, which she also had removed, Sam no longer thought it was sexy, and Norm suggests maybe she lied. And Sam said, let's go with that. So everybody's pretty happy in the moment. Cliff then comes back out, and Margaret talks with him, and she said to him, I came down from Canada without warning, never giving you a chance to say no. And I don't think Cliff wants to say no. I don't think he's scared of commitment consciously. I think is in the back of his mind. I don't think he has a problem with committing to her. I think that deep down he does, but not because he's scared of commitment consciously. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense. I don't think he feels that he's scared of commitment. I don't think he's sitting there going, I don't know how to say no, so I'm just going to say yes. But obviously deep down there is something there still. And Margaret leaves. She decides to leave because she realises what's happening with Cliff, and everybody encourages Cliff to go after her. And he does. And he says to her quite clearly, quite confidently, I'm ready to make a commitment. And he can still see as well. He still has his vision. Has he overcome the hysterical blindness? It seems like it. And there's a really sweet moment between Cliff and Margaret. Sam and Frasier are looking at them fondly. Margaret's all excited. She leaves to go and get her stuff from the hotel. And Sam and Frasier approach Cliff. And he's about to stand up. And he falls face first into a bowl of, I think, cheese doodles or something like that. And with his face in the food, he turns slightly and explains that he's paralysed from the waist down. So maybe he's overcome the hysterical blindness, but now his underlying fear of commitment seems to be affecting him in other ways, which is a pretty funny way to end things. It's an absolutely fantastic episode. I don't know if I can point to too many personal highlights. I guess Woody asking what they do with the leftover nose bits, and Cliff just being so happy. Everything Carla said and did in this one I absolutely love, and the scene with Sam and Cliff and Margaret in Cliff's apartment, Woody saying no thank you twice, absolutely loved, and just the whole thing is just, it's fabulous, absolutely love it. Such a great episode. How to Marry a Mailman, all things considered, is a pretty perfect episode of Cheers.